What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm an herbalist and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sending me a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That's so helpful. I really can't say enough how very helpful that is. Thank you so much for doing that. Everybody who does that, I super appreciate. Thank you for hitting this little save button here in the corner. Thank you for sending it to a friend. Thank you for just hanging out all the way to the end of the video. I appreciate all y'all who do that. Thank you for being here. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So, this week, as of today, we have the sun in Aries. It is the equinox. We have moved officially into springtime in the northern hemisphere. This is whether you are northern or southern hemisphere, we've got equal day and night today. We've got the same amount of light as we do dark. That's why we call it the equinox. Equa meaning equilibrium or balance, nox meaning night. And so we are there today. We are moving out of the most difficult season for the sun. The sun, so what happens with the sun is after Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, we can think of the sun as being obviously a fire planet, right? It's very bright and burns stuff and all this kind of stuff, right? So moves through Sagittarius at the end of the year, and then there's a period of time during Capricorn and Aquarius and Pisces season where the sun just doesn't have a lot of dignity. The sun is just kind of like, swimming through some difficulty. You got to go through the Saturn signs. The Saturn signs are inimical in many ways to the sun's significations. We can think about Aquarius as being opposite, Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, as being opposite to Leo, which is ruled by the sun, right? And so this speaks to an opposition or a difficulty that the sun might have when in the Saturn signs. Then moving through Pisces, this is a Jupiter sign, which is more fun, but it's still watery. It's still like, it's hard to do. Whereas once we move into Aries, then the sun, now we're talking about the little buds here. And I love them. Can we, like these guys right here? Let's see if there we go. Yeah, these guys right here, these little buds here, these guys are Aries. This is what Aries is about, right? The brand new buds. Like here we are, brand spanking new. It's so very exciting. Hello, here I am. We can begin the party because I have arrived. This is very much the way that Aries likes to sort of be in the world, right? This kind of the new springtime dynamic, this sort of buds flying out and deciding to try new things. This is very much what Aries is about. And the sun loves this location. This is the sun in its exaltation. So we can think about the sun as being super comfortable here, doesn't rule this space, but loves to be here, loves to be in this space where I can express myself. This first little bit of Aries is sometimes thought of as the axe. This axe is thought of as chopping the umbilical cord. So whatever was nourishing me before, we can think about Pisces, for example, as being sort of like amniotic fluid, and then sort of coming through there and then bursting out into the world, and then chop the umbilical cord. And there's something here about independence and self that wants to come through here in a big way. Now, I often will talk about the sun as being the personal sovereign, right? As being, the sun is often thought of as the king or queen, as it may be. This is why I like the term sovereign, right? The one who is sort of in charge of one's own destiny, the emperor of one's own life. This is interesting because we've got the sun in Aries now, and the sun in Aries, although the sun has been having a difficult time with Saturn in Aquarius, and we can recall that Mars is also in Aquarius, and although Venus is there in Aquarius as well, that doesn't make it a very comfortable area. That area of sky is having a lot of difficulty right now. And that being opposed to the sun's domicile, Leo, is going to make things difficult for the sun, for individuals to have the kind of effect that they want to have, or to, we can think about personal freedoms as sort of like having to engage in a difficult way, especially with the systems management that Saturn in Aquarius is sort of offering here. However, the sun in Aries, not the sun in Leo, the sun in Aries makes a sextile to those Aquarius planets. A sextile, this is one of our helpful dynamics. This is one of our complementary aspects, right? So we can think about how Aquarius and Aries can work together, how the fire of Aries might be able to complement and aid and benefit and support the air of Aquarius, right? And so this might be a good time to, I've been thinking about personal sovereignty and personal freedom and that sort of stuff, but like working within a system that already exists. I'm thinking here about being a character of some sort and leaning into that personality, that sense of self in some kind of way, and yet not feeling like that has to be in opposition to or in conflict with the managers or the authority figures, right? How the management and authority figures have a lot of need for faces and for characters and for things that feel personable to the plebes, as it were, right? There's something here that is really important, and so and useful both, and it's useful both for the sort of character or performing individual, as well as useful for the management system. So, you know, it's easy to think about Saturn and management systems, the management as being sort of like bad guys, you know what I mean? It's easy to think about, you know, Saturn as being a bummer, which Saturn often is, but many of us are in Saturnian roles in our own lives, right? Many of us have are project managers. Maybe we are project managers in our jobs. Maybe that's our job or our profession, or maybe we are in a profession that we have projects that we need to manage. Whether or not we carry the title, then we still have to manage projects. Maybe we're someone's parent. Maybe there are any myriad ways that we are likely to embody Saturn, right? And so how can the verve and the excitement and the personality of the sun in Aries come to help benefit what's going on with Saturn in Aquarius? Now, Saturn in Aquarius is, the Aquarius stuff is getting a lot, there's a lot going on there this week. Nothing new, right? Venus moving closer to Saturn, and Mars moving closer to Saturn. Mars is also going to square Uranus this week. With Mars in Aquarius square to Uranus in Taurus, this looks like what? Like unexpected, surprising conflict or something like this, right? More of the same, right? How many people predicted that war was going to break out in February or whatever? You know what I mean? Like we're not looking at new things necessarily, although that Uranus is likely to bring some kind of unexpected something. So surprises are in order here, but it's more of this same dynamic. We've been doing Saturn Uranus for over a year now. So this is old news, but more of it, right? Venus moving closer to that Saturn. The way that I'm thinking about this a lot is like Venus is the one that wants it to feel good. And Venus is besieged, is in between both malefics right now, between the rock and the hard place, between the difficulty and the obstacle. Both things suck, right? And so and square to Uranus, right? And trying to rule that Uranus. This really feels like all the Aquarius planets really trying to muscle on Uranus. And Uranus like kind of isn't having it, but has to. Uranus is an outer planet, and so is exempt from some of the things that the inner planets or everything Saturn and from all of the traditional planets, the 7 traditional planets, not including Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, basically. Everything, all of the traditional planets sort of have a certain set of rules, and then outer planets then have a different set of rules. They operate in a different way. And so there's something sort of like transcendent about them. And so with that in mind, Uranus doesn't have to necessarily play by the same rules as any other planet which is being overcome in the same way, right? But that overcoming dynamic is still here, right? So there's some kind of big overcoming muscle, like we're not going to accept this Uranian chaos. From the sort of Saturn Aquarius situation is not going to accept that. And yet there are still thorns that want to come through, that want to get into Saturn's side here, right? There's always something, no matter how tough your management game is, there are always going to be holes in it. You can try to cup the water and make a nice structure here, and you can even do a good job and plug your little holes up and everything, but there's always going to be something slipping through. And that's a little bit what we see going on with this Uranus in Taurus, messing with all that Saturn and Aquarius stuff. Venus is in there, you know, and so with Venus, who wants it to feel good and everything, but with Saturn, Venus-Saturn dynamics often feel like delayed gratification or something like this. Look, the Venus is gonna feel nice pretty soon. Not this week. This week is not that week. This week, it gets harder. This week, we have to work more diligently, and it's not gonna feel like diligent work increases our results. That's just not what we're doing this week. We've gotta work harder, the end. But it's also not the end, right? Because Venus is going to move into Pisces a little later. We're looking at delayed gratification. We're not looking at no gratification at all. At this moment, with Venus getting closer to Saturn, one of the things that I love about Vedius Valan's description of Saturn, Vedius Valens is a second century astrologer. This is like, what is this, 1800 years ago or something like this. And what he said was, Saturn transits feel like they take forever. They feel like they are never going to end. This is fucking true. So this Venus situation, it's gonna feel like there is no gratification coming, like it's all for naught, it's all useless, fuck it all. That's how Venus with Saturn can feel, especially with that Mars in there, making it especially ragey and frustrated. However, what we can see if we take a look at the astrology that's next, Venus in Aquarius at some point, and by at some point I mean in April, is going to move into Pisces, where Venus is exalted. Not only is Venus going to move into Pisces, where which is a position that Venus loves, but is also going to be there with Jupiter, who is a benefic and who is in domicile ruling that area. That looks like a lovely placement for that Venus. So once we get there, we can expect some of the gratification to come. We can expect some of the more delicious things that arrive with the hard work that happens now. However, where we are right now is continuously engaging difficulty and strife. We're not to the easy part yet. We're at the part now where it's likely to feel like exhaustion. It's likely to feel like fatigue. I can't take this bullshit anymore. This kind of situation is the feeling that we're likely to run into here, you know? So with that in mind, remember that we're doing the hard stuff right now. So what do you need to do in order to make it to the end of that? Well, in the first place, we've got the Sun in Aries now, which wants to help complement whatever's going on with that Aquarius stuff, right? So that can be some leaning into that Sun in Aries, leaning into that solar personality, character kind of situation. There might be some flair and some verve that are helpful in this scenario. Then we can also just think about resting sometimes, aggressively scheduling resting, maybe actually resting during the time that I've scheduled to rest, right? This kind of thing. Look, we're not at the part where we get the gratification yet. And so if we don't think about that, but we instead think about the grind, which is going to go on for another 2 weeks here, we've got 2 more weeks of grinding. And there's plenty of grind to be had. It's not like the grind stops, right? But there is some gratification on the way, but not this week. So how can we keep that nose to the grindstone in the meantime? I've been rambling a long time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sending me a tip by Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Nobody's listening to the rest of what I've got to say here. So thank you very much. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace and blessings.